Hi there, my name is Dina Whitwam, and this is my secondary strategy presentation on the jigsaw method. Here's my APA formatted introduction. So the jigsaw cognitive strategy is an effective tool that can be delivered in a whole group setting to secondary students. I would be using it in a 9th grade social studies course. This strategy in my course is modeled using primary sources related to the civil rights movement that align with the unit and lesson I'm teaching. Jigsaw is a powerful way to promote comprehension and critical thinking while also supporting the cognitive, cultural, and linguistic differences of diverse learners. As a strategy overview, the Jigsaw cognitive strategy splits students up into groups of 3 and allows them to lean into those comprehension, critical thinking, and cooperation skills. In these groups of 3, students will have about 10 minutes to analyze a primary source text. They do have examine the source text questions to support their thinking. Those are provided in the text. And then students will share out what they learned. The prominent comprehension strategy that is used in my lesson is Jigsaw. And in this lesson, students will have the opportunity to evaluate primary sources related to the civil rights movement. Benefits of this strategy include that we can reduce the amount of reading quantity required while still increasing the expectations for small group cooperation and in-depth analysis of the primary source text. In this chapter, there are 8 primary sources that would be assigned to the student groups, and some of those sources are more difficult to analyze than others. And I have here the text that students would be pulling from to do that. So we have here, you can see the different primary sources. So some of them are images, many have quotes. And then you can see at the bottom, they have examined the source questions that students can use to guide their thinking. So 3 ways to empower comprehension through this strategy. The first is comprehension monitoring, where students will be checking for their understanding as they read because they know that they need to then share out and teach the other students what they learned. So students need to be checking their comprehension. That's built into the system. Next is synthesizing information. So while students are reading, they can be connecting information that they've learned about civil rights in previous chapters or from their previous knowledge, and they can be connecting that to their primary source. Finally, summarizing. This is something you'll get to see kind of as a summative assessment in class as students share out what they learned and present that information to their peers so their peers can have that information as well. The Jigsaw strategy does really effectively support students from all backgrounds and learning needs to access this culturally diverse text. First, the strategy reduces the cognitive load that would be required of each student if they had to all read all 8 primary source texts, evaluate them, understand them. That is a significant lift for English learners and for students in need of reading support. By allowing them to dive into just one, they have the opportunity to really deeply analyze this source and really become an expert on that piece. Next, you do have the opportunity for students to build those cooperation skills as they're working with their peers and trying to problem solve and learn from this text, answer the relevant questions. And finally, they can demonstrate their understanding by showing what they learned verbally. And in addition, they'll be able to access the material from the other 7 sources auditorily, just by listening to their other students share out. There are 2 clear ways to adapt this strategy. The first is by considering how you want to split up the groups based on need. So for example, you could have mixed level groups, so students are supporting each other with comprehension, or you could have English learners in a group together so that they could discuss the text in their home language. This could be a great way to empower their comprehension. The second way is through text assignment. So those 8 texts, those are 8 primary sources from the text are not all created the same. You notice that some of them have more images than others, and some are more difficult to understand. For example, image number A, primary source A, is mostly a picture with very little writing. So this could be one that would be a little bit easier to access that content. Whereas on the other hand, F has a lot more text, and it's written in a dialect that may make it more difficult for students to understand, and may require some more inferencing. So F, for example, could be used to extend learning for students who need a little bit more of a challenge in class. In conclusion, the jigsaw strategy is an effective approach to building comprehension, collaboration, and critical thinking in a secondary classroom. By allowing students to focus deeply on one primary source and then share their learning with peers, the strategy promotes both individual expertise and collective understanding of nonfiction texts. Ultimately, this strategy empowers all students to access complex content in a supportive, collaborative environment. I have here my references, and then this is the end of my presentation, but you'll notice when I turn in this slide deck that I have the full paragraphs written, because the syllabus sort of required an essay, but then I was supposed to present it, and I wouldn't present full paragraphs like this to students, so I sort of just did both. And you can grade the slides that seem relevant to what you're looking for. Thank you so much.